Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar. We're really excited at Uber Freight to share with you some of the new product development work that we're doing specifically around our bid and procurement tool. I've got some great presenters here with me today, and we're going to walk through a couple of things quickly in the next 45 minutes or so. First, I'll introduce you to our panel. I'll provide an overview through some slides of our Exchange platform. Nick Hubbard, our product manager for the Exchange procurement tool, will provide a demo, and we're excited to have a shipper join us today with Ben to walk us through his experience with the tool and how his company is using it. I'm Steve Barber. I'm the head of shipper products at Uber Freight. Nick Hubbard is our product manager for our SaaS products, as well as our procurement tool. And Ben Crawford joins us from Superior Essex. He's the director of materials, and he'll be providing that shipper viewpoint on procurement and the tool that we've developed and are launching this month. To jump right in, Uber Freight Exchange contract procurement is really about running your contract bids faster and with a lot less effort than maybe you're doing it today. What we've found in kind of looking at this problem from a shipper's perspective is that there's still a number of challenges in executing the bid and getting carrier participation, following up with carriers, emails and spreadsheets, and Control C and Control V, and then upload ultimately into your system of record. And that's a challenge that we feel uniquely positioned to solve. We have the expertise with large transportation systems and large carrier networks to really help get those bids run in a more efficient way and with a better result. The one important aspect, one important facet of the tool is that you're bringing your own carrier network. Part of the first setup steps is setting up your carriers that you want to participate in these bid activities. You're not constrained to a specific group of carriers. You're always invited to use Uber Freight's carrier group, but these are your carriers that you're setting up for your freight. We also want to make sure that we're not seeing those emails and spreadsheets and other things that are flowing back and forth in the system. We want to collect those bids against the lanes that you need capacity to solve. We want to collect those bids in system and make it a seamless experience for the carrier to participate in those bid activities, and then for those bids to be evaluated and those carriers ultimately selected. The more of the manual process and steps that we can eliminate, the happier we think both all the participants and all the stakeholders in this process will be. And that is really important, that carriers are able to go to one place. The Uber Freight network is a big part of why we think we're going to be so good at this, that we have thousands of fleets and carriers that are already participating, already working with Uber Freight in a managed transportation or in a load-by-load carrier capacity. And with that level of carrier engagement that's already in place, carriers are going to be able to go to one portal and see hundreds and thousands of lanes for bid. It gives them the opportunity to really streamline their process through those economies of scale as well. We've in our work with the carrier fleets that we've been engaging with over the process of building and launching this tool, that's one area of excitement that they have is how much quicker and easier this can be for them as they're working to secure the right freight for their network. We really see this as an open contract freight marketplace. We want the shipper to be able to select the lanes and create a bid, assign freight to carriers, and then execute assignments all in that one application in one place, and then tie that back to their TMS. Initial integration will be with the Uber Freight TMS, but we'll be building out standard integrations and APIs to all of the major TMSs in the market to allow for, once that bid's been executed, that seamless upload and build out of the route guide and the rates of the contract. So what you'll see now from Nick is just how easy that can be. I'm going to turn it over to him and let him give you a full rundown and demo of what the tool is capable of. Nick?
All right, thank you, Steve, and good afternoon, good morning to my fellow folks on the West Coast. My name is Nick Hubbard. I am the product manager for Uber Freight Exchange, and excited to take you through a mini bid today. So we're gonna go live, and the real value of this product is we can do a mini bid here end to end in 20-ish minutes. So that's what we're gonna do. Oops. I am going to share a screen now, and when I do that, just there are a couple points of order. So I'll show up in your media player in this platform. So for the next 20 minutes, make that part bigger and pay attention to that screen. And then I think a few folks have already found the Q&A section of the webinar platform. It's below the media player. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in there. And if it's about a screen that I'm showing, I'll try to answer live. If not, we will get to them at the end. So if everyone can see my screen, I'm just going to jump in and start walking through the platform. So this is Uber Freight Exchange. This is the shipper view, and we're going to be bouncing between the shipper and carrier views so you can get a sense of what it looks like from both sides today. So as you can see, the platform, this is for a demo shipper called Hubbard and Associates, but what it does is it puts all of your mini bids, RFPs, contract procurement events at your fingertips. And you can see we've been very busy testing and demoing this exchange platform. So I am just going to jump right in, and we're going to create a bid and execute it. So first order of business is setting up basic facts of the bid. So how long is bidding going to be open for? I'm going to open it up immediately here so that I can show you the carrier side in a second. And we'll close bidding 5 p.m. on Friday. And what will happen, I won't show you this today, but each day that bidding is open, you would get an email digest of all the activity that's happened in the bid. So instead of one email per carrier you're inviting, or maybe more, you're going to get just everything in a nice summary in your inbox each day, which is one of the main values of the tool, is cleaning up your inbox. So next step is defining when we want the rates to be active for. So in this case, we're going to make this a Q4 bid through the end of the year, and keep moving. The next step is uploading lanes. So there's a couple ways you can do this. The first way is to use this side panel. So you can just enter the lane information, all the required fields show up. And that's useful if you're doing 1 or 2 lanes. The other way, which I already jumped ahead and did, is you can download the Excel template. And once you've gotten that, you can open it up and you can just drop in lane information if you're pulling that out of your TMS, or you can enter it. So you can see there will be drop downs for all of the fields that require structured data. We support any origins or destinations in North America right now. So you'll have USA, Canada, Mexico. You'll have Canadian provinces, Mexican states, and all of that can be uploaded to the tool once you're ready to go. So rather than watch me play with Excel, I'm just going to upload a template that I've pre-populated here. So here we go. And you can see once all of the lane information uploads, we do condense it into a nice little summary view here. We put some of the additional like notes, equipment notes or just lane notes at your fingertips as well as at the carrier's fingertips. And you can always hop in here and edit the lane information. If you notice, hey, it's just one field that's off, you don't have to redo the entire upload. Question in the chat. So can you extend the bid timeline once you've set these dates? So you can change it. It just requires working through us right now, so it's not self-serve, but you can ask and we can change it. We also do allow carriers to submit after the end of the bid as long as no freight has been assigned yet. So hopefully that helps. Next step in this process, so you've got our lanes. Now we're going to upload documents. So if you were running a bid on Excel and email, this replicates the email portion, so you can add any kind of attachment. So I will just add our shipper one pager, which is the overview of this product. And you can also do a few things that you can't do if you're running a bid over Excel and email. Namely, you can make this document required. So carriers will have to acknowledge the document and digitally sign it before they can view your bid. You can also add a note to the carriers, which we'll see what that looks like in a second, but we'll just drop that in there for now and keep moving. So next step is picking our carriers. So I've already run bids in the platform, but if you were coming in here for the first time, you would see you would have to upload your carriers. So you only need 4 fields to do that. You need the carrier name, their SCAC, and your point of contact's name and their email address. And you can also do that via a bulk upload as well. But that's a one-time thing. Once you have it in the tool, you just select which carriers you want to invite. So very straightforward. And we've got a few of our engineers on the call who built this tool. So shout out to them, but they're going to play the role of carrier participants in this bid in addition to me. So we'll have 5 carriers bidding here. And you can manage, if you have multiple points of contact at a carrier, which one you want to invite. And you can also manage, if let's say this carrier is incumbent on these 3 lanes, you're bidding them out, you don't want them to know about it, you can say, I don't want to invite this carrier to those specific lanes, which if you're trying to do that, sending spreadsheets back and forth, things can get mixed up pretty quickly. So that's all it takes to set up a bid, and we'll get one quick look at a review page before we send it out. So we've got our dates, lanes, our carriers, and then which lanes they're invited to. And if it all looks good, we can send it out. So let me open this in my email real quick, and I will show you. I'll show you what it looks like from the carrier side. Okay. All right. So the carriers are going to get an email that looks like this. So it is branded with Uber Freight, but it's invited. You're being invited by the shipper, in this case, Hubbard and Associates. So you could imagine this saying Q4 bid and your own name as a shipper. And we also put in that note, as well as we give a brief overview of how the platform works and all the relevant dates, right there in the intro email. And then carriers just have to click this link and follow it through in order to get into the bid event. And I'm just going to switch profiles here so that I can participate as a carrier. So now I'm going to follow that link. And you'll see, so if I'm the carrier, I have an Uber Freight account. If I'm logged in, I don't have to do any additional onboarding. If I don't have an Uber Freight account, I can create one. In this case, I have one. So I'll just show you what that looks like. But carriers do not have to join the Uber Freight brokerage in order to participate. They can only interact with us on the exchange platform. But if we do have that brokerage relationship, it saves some time with onboarding, and it also helps. Eventually, it will help us recommend carriers for your lanes. So I'll click through, and what should pop up here in a second is that gating document. So we added that, and we said carriers have to acknowledge it before they can view lanes, and that's exactly what I have to do. They can download it and review, but they have to check this box and sign off prior to participating in the bid. Not sure what happened there. But once they've gotten through and gone into the bid, that document is always available to them. So again, from the carrier side, to enter their rates, there are two options. They can either enter in this side panel here, or they can download everything into Excel and enter their capacity and rates there, and then re-upload it. So I'll show you that one, and then I'll show you a couple ways in which we clean up carrier data entry for you. So let's just do something which may be common behavior if you've run a few bids. Some carriers will just enter lane volume is my capacity, and then they'll bid not looking too closely at the lane details. And in this case, when I go to upload this, you'll see all these rates are the same format. However, the lanes we're bidding on are actually a mix of rate per mile lanes and flat rate line haul lanes. So when we get bids that look out of line, like in this case, the carrier is bidding $1,500 per mile, so that looks a little high. We're gonna say, hey, this looks too high, better go in here and correct it before you submit. So I'll just go through and fix all of those. And if we did the same thing, if we attempted to bid rate per mile on a flat rate lane, they would get a similar error message saying this looks too low. And hopefully, while I'm doing this, our other carriers are filling out and submitting their bids. And once I submit, we'll go back and see what it looks like on the shipper side. And we do flag here if carriers are, if they miss a lane, we ask if that is intentional. In this case, I bid on all 15, so nothing's missing, and I can just submit the bid. All right, so flipping back to the shipper side, these are all the lanes we bid out. We got 5 carriers, and for most lanes, we've got multiple bids. So now it's time to pick our carriers and assign some freight. So we've got these bids, and we can either do this in tool. We can also enter a counter offer if we have an offline conversation with the carrier that results in them sharpening their pencils. We select, are we awarding the carrier as primary or backup? And if we're awarding them as primary, we specify how many loads per month we're awarding. And we can also, we can do multi-primary. So in this case, we'll have 10 loads a month with one carrier, 5 with another. And you can also have multiple backups. So the other option to assign freight is, again, download everything into Excel. And once that pops up, we just give you all the carrier bids in this format. So 1 row per bid, or per lane. Sorry, 1 row per bid, and then the lanes are separated with these little formatting markers here. So I will just go through and assign some freight here. And I will also, I'll show you a counteroffer. And also show you what it looks like if we over-assign or under-assign a carrier. So in this case, this carrier said they can take 44. Let's give them 60. And yeah. And obviously in real life, you would put some more thought into who you're awarding freight to, but this is just so you can understand the functionality. And once you've done all of that, you can just upload your assignments. And we will flag a couple things. So if if you assign freight to a carrier who's not invited, we flag that blocks upload. And if you're awarding more than that carrier can handle, we warn you. So So I'm looking for this error here, and not entirely sure where that is. So I'm just going to go ahead and assign some freight in tool here. We'll take a look at that later. But let's do that counter offer. And let's see what it looks like if we over assign the carrier as well. Okay, so now we've got some assignments, and I won't go through all the lanes here, but I will just send an email to the carrier. This will go to the winning carriers here, and we'll send another email very similar to the first one, but the call to action is confirm your assignments. And in this case, the carrier would follow a link and see a screen similar to this one where they can say accept or reject their assignments. And we'll call out when there's a counteroffer that's different from their original rate, as well as when the assigned volume is higher than their original rate. So for simplicity's sake, I will just accept all of these assignments. And if a carrier did reject assignments, they would be sent back to the shipper, and that lane would become editable. And now, in the case of the assignments that have been accepted, they show up as accepted here. If anything got rejected, I could go back, reassign that to another carrier, and move on. So once I've assigned all of my freight and the assignments are confirmed with carriers, we can do two things to make that live in our routing guide. You can either export the assignments as Excel, or if you're on the Uber Freight TMS, we actually have a push button sync that it requires a one-time configuration or setup, but once you have that, you can just press a button and send the rates and the routing guide into your TMS. So that's a mini bid end-to-end, and hopefully gives you a flavor of what it's like to interact with the Exchange platform. So I see a lot of questions in the chat. I'm going to save those to the end. And at this point, we'll just transition to Q&A with Ben. So thank you for all the questions, and we'll get into it. But yeah, Ben, thanks for joining us.
Sure, happy to be here. Thanks, Nick.
So Ben has been one of our early users of Uber Freight Exchange with Superior Essex. So Ben, would you like to just give a quick overview of Superior Essex, what you do as a company?
Sure, no problem. And the slide I have up here is Essex Furukawa. That is a division of Superior Essex. It's the one that I primarily work for, although I do support all the different divisions in North America. So that division, we make magnet wire that goes in all kinds of electric motors and transformers. So we use a lot of copper and aluminum. The exciting part of our industry right now is that as all the vehicle manufacturers are transitioning to electric cars, all of them need magnet wire. So suddenly it's a booming industry and lots of investment and building expansions. And product development work. So it's been very interesting for the last few years as we're working with Tesla, Toyota, Ford, GM, Rivian, you name it, pretty much every Hyundai vehicle manufacturer out there is working with us because we're really leading the way in developing the higher performing wire that they need to make sure the vehicles perform well.
Excellent. Yeah, very exciting stuff. And can you just expand a little more on what that means in terms of your freight network and how you think about contract procurement, like when you're dealing with automotive clients or a lot of growth?
Sure, no problem. For our internal network, especially, because copper is so heavy, we're vertically integrated. We make our own enamels that go on the coating of the wire, and we make our own copper we convert cathode into rod. So with all of that, we have a ton of internal shipments from between our manufacturing sites and between our distribution centers throughout North America, Canada, US, and Mexico. So there are many lanes that have high volume that we deal with all the time. We are primarily dry van. We do quite a bit of hazmat shipment within that for the chemical shipments for the enamel, and a lot of cross-border work between US and Canada, and even more so US and Mexico. Keeps us very busy. And as we are talking about the use of this tool, and let me know if I'm getting ahead of you here, Nick, but the use of this tool can save me a ton of time when we go out and do mini bids. I mean, some of our highest volume lanes, we are negotiating directly with dedicated carriers, but there are a lot of lanes that are medium to lower usage that we do mini bids right now on a 6-month basis. So we're, with as active as the changes in the market have been for the last few years, a year seems a little too long to lock in rates, and shorter time periods is just a bit too much work with the number of lanes we're talking about. So in a 6-month bid window, we're rebidding these lanes, trying to make sure that we're staying active with what's going on currently in market rates.
And can you just give a sense of like number of carriers you're working with, and number of lanes you would put into a bid, how often you're doing that kind of activity?
Sure. So the bid that we actually have a prep meeting this afternoon yet. We're going to do in the neighborhood of about 30 different lanes with varying volumes, of course. And we've got a set of carriers that we do a lot of business with. And so we don't want to open this up to just everybody who contacts us, because that could turn into hundreds of carriers. So in this particular bid, we'll probably have about 30 carriers that will allow to participate on about 30 lanes. So, that's 900 data points that we're dealing with. When you get all that back, of course, not everybody bids on every lane, but previously to this, we were doing this, as most of you probably do, with spreadsheets and emails, and you're having to email over, agreements and getting those signed back and keeping track of who signed what and whether or not we got everybody's agreements. It just was a logistical nightmare trying to keep track of it all. And so we been working with Uber Freight to test this out, and ran an actual live bid with them and with trusted carriers so that we could work closely with them and get their feedback. And really the biggest values to me have been, and this may not seem like a big deal, but to be able to have the documents that they are required to acknowledge and or sign is massive in reducing the amount of keeping track of who's done what, whether everything's completed with all the different carriers. So getting those required documents as they have to do this before they're allowed to bid saves me a ton of time. And then just the ability that all the emailing comes from the tool and is generated in and out of the tool, and the information feeds back into the tool, just spares me a ton of work on keeping track of spreadsheets and getting everybody's numbers logged in. And some of them will reshuffle the lane order in the bid, so I can't copy and paste the data, and all of those things were just big headaches that this takes care of for us. And I'm excited about how much time it's going to save me, really.
Yeah, I think you did a great job of covering kind of what was life like before Uber Freight Exchange.
Yeah.
Anything, I guess, as you think about looking forward, I think you said you're about to kick off a larger bid.
Yes.
Any of the product features we've discussed that you are hoping we will add soon? Like anything you're looking ahead to?
So the one we've talked about that I'm most excited about is gaining the ability to suggest carriers that we should be looking at for some of these lanes. Most of you shippers out there probably know you don't know who's also happening to travel on these lanes that you ship on all the time. So if you guys can develop the tool so that we'll be able to, it'll suggest that, hey, you might want to get in contact with these carriers. They're traveling on similar lanes. They've got a lot of volume. That would be tremendously beneficial to us. So excited about that possibility.
Yeah, I think we're all looking forward to that. And are you? Let's just focus on present use of Uber Freight Exchange. So the bid that you're kicking off, can you go through like how many lanes, how many carriers, and like how long is that going to take you end to end?
So it's about 30 lanes, 30 carriers, give or take. A few on either side of that. So it previously would have taken me, weeks and weeks of a lot of my time trying to keep track of that, get everybody's emails, keep track of who's responded, who hasn't responded, all those sorts of things. So I expect that this is going to cut my time probably 80% would be my best estimate here, because there's so much less organizing that I have to do manually that's going to just make a huge difference in the amount of effort and the amount of tracking and copying and pasting and everything else. All of that kind of tracking work goes away. When we ran the bid previously using the tool on a smaller scale, it was just obvious how much easier it is to that the tool does all the organizing. It tells you here's who bid what, and it tells you who's bid, who hasn't bid, and who's the lowest cost, and it keeps things very organized for you automatically. All these things that used to be manual effort and took a lot of time.
Makes a ton of sense. Anything, as we wrap up here, anything else you would say to a shipper who's considering adopting a new tool like Uber Freight Exchange? Anything they should be thinking about?
I guess the one other thing, and I think you mentioned it when you were doing the demo a little bit, but we do use the Uber Freight TMS. So the connection to the routing guide at the end of the process, I think, is also something that we don't want to underestimate the value that's there as well. Once we've awarded all of these lanes, the fact that this thing can then upload that data into our TMS will save the rest of my team a lot of time as well.
Yeah, and no potential for erroneous entry or no delay in achieving savings from the bid. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, yeah, thank you so much, Ben, for joining and for sharing your experience with us. I think we've got 5 minutes or so for Q&A, and I see a lot of questions in the chat. So I think, Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you to pull out some of the top questions here.
Yeah, I think it'll be a challenge. Lots of interest and lots of excitement, I think, around this. One that came up, Nick, was are only carriers that are a part of your current network or that you set up allowed to bid, or is it open to other carriers as well? And I'll ask you as the product manager on that one.
Yeah, so it's only carriers you select. I think I saw a few other questions, so I might tie some together here. Mm-hmm. But one of the other questions was, is Uber Freight one of those carriers? So you saw in the demo, Uber Freight isn't listed in that carrier network. we intend to make it a carrier that's available to you, but it's always in your control as the shipper who to invite. And if you choose to invite us or see our rates, that's great, but there's no obligation to do so. And that goes for all carriers. So just work with the carriers you want to work with. Hopefully that covers a few.
Yeah, I think that should check off a couple. A couple other questions are kind of around basic functionality. So the rates that carriers are allowed to enter, how much flexibility they have around line haul versus all in, fuel surcharges, that sort of thing. I think I may change that question just a touch instead of about functionality, because I think all of that can either be built or be done. And maybe just ask around the ability that I think Ben mentioned, the ability to have all of the required kind of information and documents and the rules and instructions around the bid contained in one place, kind of that stuff solved. Maybe we could speak a little bit to kind of how that process works, and Ben, what your experience has been, and Nick, if you wanted to chime in as well.
Sure. You want me to start with that one?
Yeah, that'd be great, Ben.
Sure. So yeah, for us, we just had a couple of documents, but I mean, you can load any document you want them to acknowledge in there. It's free form, whatever you upload in it. So to us, I could go as simple as, they just need to acknowledge some basic terms, or maybe even just a privacy statement. Or I could put the whole contract in there and make them acknowledge, our carrier contract. It's pretty free form, and it's whatever we need to put in there. So again, that saves me a lot of time, and I also then can guarantee that everybody who bids has already done the acknowledgments that are required, and that can be a real hassle to try to keep track of who has and who hasn't. If you're doing emails back and forth with every one of these carriers, it takes a lot of time.
The power of an application. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to build on that a little, I think that the general trade-off that we think of when we're building Exchange is, Excel and email is incredibly flexible, which is great up until a point, and then that flexibility actually becomes a little annoying because you as the shipper can type anything, but carriers can also type anything, and reconciling all that data becomes painful. So we've tried to build in as much flexibility to the platform as possible. So you saw, I think you can enter notes for a lane, you can enter additional details about equipment type, you can enter, you can designate, is the lane multi-stop, you can put in a benchmark rate, which is only visible to you internally, but it helps with savings calculations. There's a lot of fields in that initial upload that you can use if you want to. I think someone asked about fuel. You can say, we're on this mileage program with these settings when you provide mileage, or you can just provide the mileage without specifying all that additional detail. So we try to give you that flexibility, but with a layer of data validation so that what you get back from carriers is standardized and in the format that you're trying to work with.
Thanks. There are a ton of questions. We'll take those and provide answers to the folks that asked. I do want to kind of ask Nick, kind of to close this out, kind of what's next? What's the next step that folks that are interested should take?
Yeah, great question. So I think we'll have a link in the chat here in a second, but right now we're running a wait list. So this Exchange is not accessible to the general public, but we've had a lot of shippers who are interested. So if you are interested, I would encourage you to get on the wait list and get your spot as soon as possible. We'll be onboarding shippers from that wait list through probably the end of the year at this point. and the product will be available to the public only after we're done with this beta program. So sign up for the waitlist and be on the lookout for additional update emails.
Great. Nick, Ben, thank you very much. Thank you to all of the folks that joined today and participated. Clearly a significant amount of interest in making the bid process and the procurement process easier and faster. And we're excited to bring a new product to help with that, both for the shippers that work inside the Uber Freight network and shippers and carriers that haven't worked with us before. So again, thanks. Have a great rest of your day, and look forward to interacting with you all soon.